Welcome to the B2B Sales and Marketing Hotline.
Dialing up the latest tactics and hottest trends, we're here to help you take your B2B game from stagnant to stellar.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Maryanne. And together, we're ready to answer your burning B2B sales and marketing questions.
Each episode, we'll tackle a need-to-know topic in the ever-evolving world of B2B sales and marketing. We'll break it down with actual takeaways that you can implement right away.
And because you don't get results without real talk, we're wrapping up every show with a quick Q&A segment. So fire away with your burning questions.
Whether you're a seasoned sales leader or a marketing maestro just starting out, the B2B Sales and Marketing Hotline is your one-stop shop to take your B2B efforts to the next level.
Hi, Emily. We are for episode 2 of our podcast.
Yes. We're like old pros now.
Yeah. One episode in, we're starting number 2. We know what we're doing. But we do have a good topic today. The topic is streamlining your sales funnel with HubSpot Automation. So
that is a riveting topic, Maryanne.
The big one. There's a lot of meat here, so get ready. Get your coffee, listeners. We're going to start from square one and end with HubSpot Automation. So, okay,
love it.
Let's start from square one, though. I really actually think we do need to spend significant time talking about just sales funnel in general. Right?
Yes.
What is a well-defined sales funnel before we even talk about the automation for it? And I'm glad we're talking about this because I think our listeners probably jump the gun too. When we start, Lead starts working with people are very excited to set up HubSpot Automation, and you have to define your sales funnel first. B2B companies, it's very important to understand that.
100%. Yes, I absolutely agree. I think that the biggest thing, I mean, we both came from sales, right? Like we both were, sellers, we sold, we understand like the sales flow, and like you're so focused in sales as a seller too on like the decision stage, right? Like you want those people to say yes today. You're looking at this week's sales, but you have to put yourself in the mindset of like, okay, but these decision stages they're gonna make a decision, right? Like they're gonna ultimately say yes or no, and what are we left with if we focus all of our time and attention on those who are ready to buy right now? We are missing a huge opportunity to talk to the people who are maybe with your competitor, who are in a contract for the next year, who are, not ready to buy right now, but they will be. They'll be ready, and you will be the one who's winning because you put automation in to talk with them.
But it's like, I think that's the exact example of sales and marketing alignment. Salespeople are very focused on that decision stage, and marketers get hyper focused on the awareness stage, and it's all one process.
Yeah.
Actually, okay, obviously I'm not going to say who, but I had a conversation with a very sophisticated, large company recently who I was talking about the sales funnel with. And I mean, sales funnel, also known as purchase funnel.
Buying funnel. Yeah.
HubSpot calls it the flywheel. So it's not just actually funneling down, it's around. But I had a long conversation about this, and this I'm not going to say if they're a prospect or a client even, but they were confused because they were interchanging that with sales process, and it's very different things. Your sales funnel is talking about their awareness, consideration, and decision stages, taking your going to be customer from awareness to action. They're bringing them down through their process. It's not about your process as the seller. It's about the customer's process that they're going
and
through.
You know what? I'm so glad you said that, because I don't even think that people are talking. You might not even know that someone's in the awareness stage yet, because they haven't even, they don't want to talk to you. They haven't reached out to you. They're not looking to speak with you yet. They're just simply aware of an issue in their life, right? Like they are not getting enough foot traffic. They are, X, Y, and Z, whatever the issue is that your service or product solves, they're aware of the issue, and they're maybe doing some light Googling.
Yeah. I don't even think it's like take action. You're so right. It's not, people are like, oh, well, what action are they taking? It's not even take action. It's just Googling. What are they thinking about and we're all doing it. We Google what we're thinking about. I mean, I don't even want to show you my tabs right now of other things I've been Googling away on because I'm curious about the Olympics and,
Yes.
all the things. Like, people are not aware they have a problem, but they're not ready to take action outside of it.
Right. And that is the very first step of your buying. Like, you wouldn't even know that someone is in the buying cycle for you. Like, it's that funnel is long before your seller meets them.
Because you know what, Emily? They're not in your buying cycle if you're not speaking to them. They're finding information from someone else. They're not going to become a customer if you don't have information for them to consume to be able to progress to the next stage.
Yes.
People don't get to decision if they don't start from awareness. So
100%.
And marketers are good at this. They're like, ooh, I'm going to reach those people. I'm going to brand myself. I'm going to put myself out there. And salespeople are typically good at, like, I'm going to take that person who has a proposal from my competitor and from me, and I'm going to make sure they decide on me. But the connection of all of them is what we at Lead You To do well, but what B2B businesses need to be thinking about. And HubSpot really does help with that. And HubSpot's automation. They've thought about those things.
Yes. So what I was going to say is, I do think that, but I think when we're talking about using automation for moving people through a buyer's funnel, we're talking about sequences, we're talking about workflows, and we're talking about like automated social, right? Like how can we automate our process and be maybe not social as much. I was thinking social because you're like automating the month maybe, or like, but you're basically, you're thinking about, how you might move someone through the buyer's journey with actions, right? Like, we all hear drip campaigns, lead nurturing workflows, all the different like things. And I think that's what we're talking about, right?
Okay, yes, that is what we're talking about. But I think that before they automate anything, they need to create it. I think that people try to they get excited about HubSpot's automation, which, hello, you and I, exact examples of two of those people who get really excited about it. It is cool, all the things that HubSpot can automate, but you have to create your process and then take your process that you've created and figure out how to make it more efficient with the automation that's available. Okay, we want to email 3 times somebody who fills out a form on the landing page, or, I know a good example, life cycle stages. We want to label this person in our CRM as somebody who has become an opportunity. Okay, they are in the decision stage. They have a proposal in front of them, and we need to make them an opportunity. And then the automation comes with, automatically change their life cycle stage rather than manually change their stage. But yes, all of those things you said, and really defining and creating that process of what you want to happen with those prospects that start with that's starting in the awareness, how you can funnel them to make the decision to go with you, and then step back and figure out how you can automate it. HubSpot's a whiz. It can automate a lot of things, but you got to figure out what you're doing first.
I totally agree. So when I'm thinking about a sales sequence or anything that a seller would set up to like automate, or a marketer would set up like a workflow potentially, or whatever that automated, what are like the key things you think of that need to be in that email? Because first things to me is like meeting link, having calls to action. Like, those are the things that, like, so if you're taking someone from awareness to ultimately making that decision, you want to include content, things for them to look at, things for them to read. You want to educate them. So I'm thinking of like, okay, if we're going to build out this sequence, we're going to think through how we're going to let automation work for us. I'm just trying to think through like, okay, what can our listeners actionably do now and think about? So those are kind of ones that I'm just throwing out there, are like call to action, making sure that everything leads to a piece of content or an action that they can take to learn more, and then a meeting link for them to easily self-serve and book that meeting.
So I do think you have to align your automation by identifying where they are in the funnel. So making sure that when someone fills out a form, okay, this is a more top of the funnel form. So what do we want them to do after they fill out this form? How do we want to nurture them? What emails should we send them to what multiple emails should we send them in? How should we automate it to move them to consideration?
Yes.
So every form isn't the same. One form could be very, subscribe to our blog, and another form more bottom of the funnel, meet with me, or I'm ready to have a 20-minute conversation with a salesperson. Those forms should each have very different automation occurring after them because they're speaking at very different stages of the funnel.
Yes. And I love that too, because I think it's people often go straight to pushing that meeting, right? So like, let's say someone subscribes to your
Always,
right?
They
like the worst thing you could do is have a sequence that's like, book a meeting with me now. Talk to me tomorrow.
They're not ready for that. They are not ready. They want to read on their own and educate themselves and think about their own problem and how it fits into how you're solving problems. They are not ready to talk to you. I know.
Yes. So critically thinking about putting yourself in the shoes of the person. I mean, we all do it. We all download ebooks all the time. We download ebooks. We sign up for webinars. We do all the things and think about what the logical next step would be. So someone subscribes to your blog. They're interested in what you're putting out there. They're generally interested. What's the next step? Maybe you send them a very bottom of the funnel or a very top of the funnel ebook, right? Like just the basics of your industry, nothing too fancy. You're just continuing to educate them. Then maybe a few days after that, you're going to send them an upcoming webinar, right? So now they're coming, they're going to meet you. They're going to see your face. Okay, now we're moving them a little further. Then it's like 4 steps later, and then you can start booking a meeting with them. Like, let's not have your meeting link in there. Sure. Offer the meeting, sure. Give them the option, but we want to be consultative. And I think that's the biggest thing with sequences or workflows that I see fail is ones that push that meeting too hard and they skip education.
So they're trying to skip their prospects awareness and or consideration phase and push them to the bottom of the funnel.
Right.
And it's really important to be intentional about being the curator of their process, making sure that they move in a way. And it's not for the benefit of them as it is for you. By the time they get to the decision stage, they're going to be more ready to purchase. Your salesperson is going to have to spend less time educating and answering questions that you could have already answered in that awareness and consideration stage through content if you're doing it intentionally rather than just tossing it all out there.
Yes. That just made me think too. I think we should share with the listeners a quick, easy way to get some of the ideas for the first part of that sale. How do we educate them? How do we come up with topics that people are actually asking? And I think we both have the same answer if you asked us, but our number one way is ask sales, right?
100%. Yes. It is so funny to have these conversations with CEOs. They're like, I know my sales funnel. I know what they're talking about. And then having a workshop and talking to sales and having them say different things.
Right.
What bothers me? It bothers me when people say things so generally. Oh, I think people are doing this.
Yes.
Oh, I love to go to a salesperson and say, last proposal you presented, why did they not buy? Very specific. Yes. Give me an exact example of who, I'm not going to know who your prospect was, but actually think of the first meeting you went on. What did they ask? Not just generally, what do people ask at the beginning, but people who are listening to this, if you manage a sales team, sit down one-on-one with your salespeople and ask them specifically what were the 3 questions that your prospect asked in the first meeting that you had with them, because that gives you real data and not imaginary. It's the same thing with target personas, which maybe we'll need a different episode on, but people think they know things and they're not taking real data. So I do think that's so important. And
100%. If you're going to start educating people and you want to actually educate them, you got to answer the questions that they're actually asking, right? What is the objection that they're giving your salesperson?
Full circle, Emily, this brings us back to HubSpot and automation. But in HubSpot, you can, once you capture their information and they form, you can see what they're looking at. What blogs are they viewing? You have got their information. You know what blogs they're viewing on your, and if you have content, then you'll be able to equate that to, hey, this is a pertinent topic of something that a lot of people are looking at right now. So that's the question that they're asking. And then you figure out where they are. Where are they? Where are they in their journey?
Something that I love to do that I think works well is creating lists in HubSpot of people who are viewing pages.
Ooh, good. That's a good automation tip. Yes.
Create a list of everyone who has viewed X page and has not filled out a form, or viewed this page and has not filled out a form, whatever your criteria is, and then have an automated workflow that enrolls them. So as soon as they view those 2 pages and they are not a lead in your system and they have never filled out a form, boom, we're going to start, like, that's the type of stuff that we want to start getting automation on, and then start that process of educating them, start moving them through that funnel.
I love it. That is such a good specific example that listeners can take away and start doing right away.
Yeah.
That's great. Lists are underutilized in HubSpot. They can be so helpful to capturing and segmenting that data.
Yes, 100%. Building lists and then having automation deploy based on them meeting the criteria of that list is a really easy way to have automation work for you.
Website tracking for lead behavior. That is prime time for HubSpot.
Gotta use it. Love it.
I love it. And then coaching and explaining expectations to sales on when to reach out based on that behavior. So let marketing do their job and get them further down the funnel before sales reaches out, and have salespeople be prepared, knowing what to look for. Okay, this has been accomplished, and so now it's time for me to reach out.
Yes, I think that's one of the biggest things that we educate around here at Lead G2 is the next step after a form has been filled out. In general, knowing where that person is in that buyer's funnel is extremely important. It's like the equivalent of reading the room, right? Like if your seller is not going and looking at all the lead intelligence, all that whole contact record, knowing everything that person has ever done, and then thinking and responding, they are not reading the room. They have no idea what this person is doing, what they're thinking, what they've been looking at, how long they've been looking. I mean, you're going to have a very different conversation with someone who's been looking at your website for the last year and has finally filled out a form than you would with someone who just found you yesterday and filled out a form. Like, that's a very different conversation. Yes.
And that process can change, just like everything else with creating content and promoting it. Analytics make a difference. So reviewing how your workflows are set up, when you're adding more content, how that changes things, when you're adding more salespeople, how that changes things. So just making sure that that process is really owned by someone and updated and evaluated, not all the time, but annually, probably, if you're in a growth mode.
Yeah, regularly. And just cluing sales into when a new piece of content is posted, or, just like that continuous marketing and sales alignment will help too with sales and marketing, both moving these people through the funnel together, working cohesively with that. So
it's totally a mindset, trying to think of things from your prospect turned customer's perspective rather than your own. Not coming in with the sales process, coming in with what are they thinking, where are they in their journey, what education, what steps have they taken, really thinking about it from them.
Yes. Yeah. Like, think about if you go to like a department store or like any store, right? Like, you don't want someone who's just like clearly pushing you to this like one pair of shoes or whatever. Like, you want to have someone who's like asking you questions, thinking it through with you, wondering what the event might be, looking for all the shoe options and presenting them to you. You want someone who is like consulting you and educating you until ultimately you're ready to make that decision. It was kind of a phony example, but
I love it. A shopping example.
The idea stands that where the person is in the buyer's journey is going to really you have to tailor your conversation and the automation to help you have that conversation and push them through. So,
and I think that businesses can get overwhelmed by overhauling every process that they have, but you don't have to do that. You can start small. You can do it with the one piece of content that you've created and start there. So you don't have to overhaul everything. This is not that message, but starting starting somewhere, starting with a piece of content and creating the process that should be followed, and then creating the automation behind it. That'd be a good first step.
Yeah, first step. All right, hang up and go do that. Or not hang up. Stop
listening. We're on the phone. They're not.
Go do that. Go find a piece of content. Make yourself an automated workflow. Start bringing people through the buyers.
Perfect.
Okay, shall we answer some questions?
Yes.
And so the first one here is, what are your top tips for ensuring seamless alignment? Oh, this is hilarious. We were just talking about that. Seamless alignment between sales and marketing teams, especially when it comes to lead nurturing and qualification.
Wow. I promise you. No, that was the question. We already answered it.
I know, it's funny. We literally just talked about it. But I do think what we said before, I would say again, I feel the same. I think that marketing and sales teams, it's so crucial to be aligned, because it's a very disconnected experience for the prospect if they're not, right? So
yes,
qualification, when marketing passes it over to sales, it needs to be the right time, or we need to really be educating sales about where they are in the buyer's journey. We need to have that alignment so that they are, reaching out the appropriate way.
Right. Yeah, you can absolutely tell when it's not.
Yes, 100%. Would you have anything to add to that? Or you want me to go to the next question?
No, let's go to the next one.
All right. So beyond website traffic, what KPIs or key performance indicators are most valuable for tracking the effectiveness of B2B content marketing efforts?
Ooh, I feel like people aren't going to like our answer to this. It depends. I wish there was a magic answer to that, and that it was the same for every business. But there's not. But here's what I would say to that question, and that is whatever you deem most important, to actually track it and improve upon it. The mistake people make are trying to track too many things, not putting any weight on any of them, and then not make any changes based on them.
Right.
So if you're like, oh, I am tracking, I track, because we see a lot of people who don't do any analytic looking at any tracking of KPIs, and therefore nothing's ever optimized. But you can track incorrectly, and that would be by just trying to do too much. Choose what you want to track it consistently, and then optimize based on it. Actually make decisions. Put on your calendar quarterly meetings to decide what 3 action steps you want to take based on the analytics from the last quarter. It does not have to be, again, huge thing. And there's not one magic KPI everyone should be tracking, but I think it's the habit and intentionality behind actually tracking something and being intentional about making a change based on it. That would be my answer. I
totally agree. I think a lot of people would jump to answering this question as if it's generating leads, it's working, and I think that it's important to recognize that there are so many different ways of seeing if something is working, right? Just because someone's not actually downloading the piece of content doesn't mean they're not reading the landing page and then going to do something else, or receiving it from sales and reading it that way, or whatever it might be, or just generally knowing about your business, seeing that you have the ebook on your website, and then moving about their day. So it's hard to not get caught up in this isn't generating leads, it's not working. But I do think there is something to say about regular optimizing, like you mentioned, Maryanne, going in, maybe updating a little bit of copy, or, taking one less question out of a form, or, sharing a blog post a couple more times on social media, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to note too, like you said earlier, making one small change and seeing if that helped, because if you change too much, then you might be doing yourself a disservice.
It's like A/B testing. When people want to A/B test and they change 4 different things, and then they realize, I learned nothing from this. I learned nothing.
I know. Yeah, well, okay. Well, that's a wrap. Thank y'all for listening again. It's always fun to chat with you.
I love chatting with you about this stuff too.
And, feel free to connect with us. All of our information will be in the notes, and listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. Come join us again. We'll be doing more of these. And again, submit your questions so we have things to answer. Thanks.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the B2B Sales and Marketing Hotline.
Don't forget to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts so that you never miss an episode. And if you've got a question for us, head to the show notes and let us know what's on your mind.
And visit our website, leadg2.com, where you can find even more helpful B2B sales and marketing resources.